Welcome to Rev Up Your Business with Hilda Gann, the podcast for people-centric leaders, business owners, and HR professionals who know that people are at the heart of business success. Join me and industry experts as we explore the key aspects of building a thriving company, sharing cutting-edge strategies, impactful insights, and the latest trends to help you ignite your business growth. It's time to rev up your leadership, rev up your success. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Rev Up Your Business. Today, my guest is Sandra D'Souza, and we're going to focus on recruitment. Sandra D'Souza is the founder and managing director of Sandstone Solutions Group, Inc., a boutique full-service recruitment firm based in Mississauga, which she's established 12 years ago. With over 20 years of experience in recruitment, including 8 years as recruiting director at a global consulting firm, she brings deep industry knowledge and strategic insight to her work. Adding to her credentials is a CPA, a CA, with 14 years of corporate experience in accounting and financing, giving her a very unique perspective on aligning talent with business needs. People are always looking for people in January and throughout the year, but I invited Sandra to come and talk, and we're going to focus on how to hire top talent, the insider's tips, strategies, and secrets. Welcome, Sandra.
Hi, Hilda. Thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome. I was thinking as we were getting prepared, between you and I, we have over 50 years of recruiting staff, nurses, IT people, finance people, executive leaders. I thought, yeah, I need to invite Sandra and we're going to have a conversation on helping you. And that's why we called it Insider's Tips. Think of it. We have 50 plus years of experience.
No, it's scary when you think about it.
Yes. Yes. So I want to get started, and this is really to help, business owners, human resources professional, and organizations think about, well, so how do I hire people? And I guess, maybe the first thing is, what do you do to make sure you're hiring the right candidates?
Well, I think the first thing is, when you're working with a client, you want to make sure that they're clear on what they're looking for in a candidate, and that they've got a well-written job description that accurately reflects the role, and they've sort of thought about everything about that role, like, so who the right person would be, the skills, what the deliverables are going to be in that position, and what kind of personality they need in that role as well that would fit with the rest of their team. So Those are kind of the first things, I think, just sort of getting all that sorted, so that what your starting point is and what you're looking for from a high level perspective.
And I think it's often overlooked. People just assume, I just need somebody who's going to do marketing. Well, what kind of marketing? Is it going to include digital media? Are they expected to go out and market, right? So you need to be clear what you expect, because different people would have different skill sets. So you want to make sure you're hiring her right. And the other thing is, when you do explain the job and they start and it's not the job you explained, then they feel like they were hired under a false sense of this is a good fit. And then they're going to leave.
One of the biggest problems is that, when people get in there and it's, they end up in a role that they weren't expecting to be in. And that doesn't help anybody. And then, the clients wonder why everyone's leaving. And the candidates are like, why am I here? What did I just do? So I think, it's really, really important for everybody to be as open and transparent as they can be about their environments and like I said, about the role, what is actually involved, the hours, what are the expectations, like all those things, right?
It gets down to the nitty gritty. Are you flexible? Or are you expecting people to come in 3 days a week, no matter what? Right? Because it isn't one way. It's a two-way, conversation to see if there's a fit there. Statistics show that people who come on board and they feel that what they thought they were getting, they weren't getting, they know within a week, even a day. Like if you show them their workstation, or you call them remotely online and say, okay, here's a list of things you need to do. Go ahead, find them. We'll see you tomorrow. Like, excuse me, hello, welcome.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, that sort of goes to onboarding, right?
Yeah,
Like, I think right from the start, if you start out with the person going, oh my God, it's very hard to come back from that, to make them feel like they made the right decision. So yeah, so to your point, like people know very quickly whether they're in the right role or not. And most people give it a chance, right? Like and I think depending on the level as well, like obviously in the more senior roles, you're gonna wait it out. You're gonna see, like, is this, really what I was told, and because you're willing to give it a chance. But if it doesn't change, or if you're not seeing it within the first month or two, you're probably, making the decision to start looking again. And
and it happens, like people who are disillusioned because what you told them and sold them didn't happen. They feel they've made a mistake, and they're gone within 6 months to a year. And if you've used a recruiter, you think, well, that didn't work. I paid this recruiter this kind of money. But the point is, the recruiter can only help you find the right candidate. You have to make them feel welcomed and want to stay. So, gone are the days when people will guarantee, if that person doesn't stay, I'm gonna find another person. Because what happens is that you actually were the one probably that created this environment for them to leave, but you're blaming the recruiter. But it's everything. It's finding the right candidate, but creating a place where the candidate values where they are and they want to stay.
Yeah, and I think, again, it goes back to, I mean, as you said, the recruiter can only do so much. They can find you the candidate that you've both agreed was the right candidate to make the offer to, So I think if there's any doubts, like, it should be raised prior to that offer being extended.
And one more point I want to make, when I can remember when people would send me their job postings, and it would be so sketchy, then I'd have to go and talk to them so I would know. And some of it to help them visualize so that when they're interviewing, they know what they want, because they probably hadn't thought too much it through. But the other thing is, when you're doing your job posting, is to make sure that you identify what is nice to have versus required. So if you require expertise in a software, just a working knowledge will not do, and you will be very unhappy. So make sure you spell those things out, right?
Yeah, and I think, again, it goes back to what we started saying, like, you just have to be very clear on what your expectations are for this role. And if it means taking a little more time to fill it, then take the time, because it's worth it to put that effort in at the beginning to sort of really list out what are the key requirements and the must-haves, and really focus on those in the interview process.
We talked a little bit earlier about candidates and what are they looking for. Like, obviously, when they show up and they arrive and they think, I don't think this was what I expected, right? So maybe what I'd like to do now is help those HR professionals, those entrepreneurs and business owners who are scratching their head saying, well, how do I do it? Let's help them kind of understand what candidates are looking for today. Because if maybe you can modify your company expectations and atmosphere to create a place where people say, I love this place. I so want to stay.
Yeah, I think everybody wants that situation. So I think for most candidates, I mean, they want to go to a place where, one, they're doing work that's challenging and interesting to them, and they're being compensated well for the work that they're doing. But also, it's an environment that they want to be in every day. It's a positive environment. There's opportunities for career progression. There's opportunities for other learning and development, all those things that make you want to stay in a position longer term. It's how can you progress and how can you add value to the organization as well. So given those opportunities to step up and maybe do some things beyond your typical job description.
And I reinforce what you said about people want a career that is challenging and meaningful, right? Unlike some people think, oh, they're lazy and they just don't want to do stuff. Well, maybe they get that way because they don't have challenging work and it's very boring and mundane.
Yeah, and I think also too, if they don't see a path for them, like if they've been in a role and they feel that, they can't progress, for whatever reason, like the way, like the structure, there's, sort of a glass ceiling kind of thing, whatever the situation may be, that's going to change your motivation on a day-to-day basis as well, right? So
For sure, for sure.
feel like, I can move up in the organization or move around the organization, not even necessarily up, but you're going to put a little more effort into your role and
it's very interesting, as the engineering company my husband and I built, as we kept growing from 2 people to 10 people to 20. It was interesting when you're first starting out, and so this is really for the small to medium-sized business, you are trying to sell them on why do you want to come here? Right?
Exactly.
Because, why would I come to your place when I could be going to a corporate organization that got benefits,
Mm-hmm.
So you're really selling them. And what dawned on me when we were 20 to 25 people was they expected us to be like a corporation in terms of, do you have benefits? Do you have a career ladder? So, today you're a novice engineer and you will grow into a 1 to 2 year engineer, and this is what the expectations are. So we had to keep building, but really that eye opener was, wow, we're 25 and they think they're coming to a business, not a little agency place. So I'm sharing that with people because as you continue to grow, the expectation of these candidates that are coming through, they're looking for a mini corporation with decent benefits. They know they're not going to get the blue standard type of best things, but you need to start introducing group benefits, RSPs, and even educational learning, whether it's right at the corporate level, like at the business level, or you send them out for different things. They are expecting all these things.
Yeah, and I think, you made a good point that the expectations change as your company size grows. So the people you're going to hire when you're 5 or 6, they're joining for different reasons, right? Because they want to help build and grow and they get it. There's that risk and uncertainty. The people that join at 25 to 30 employees, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Their expectations are different. What they're willing to do is different. And you have to recognize that and cater accordingly.
Yeah, because that's something that people don't think about, but I wanted us to share that, and just to add, then we sold the business when we were 125, and we did our homework and we created what I call is we didn't want a piece of the pie, we wanted to bake the pie. Right. And so in Canada they didn't have an transportation engineering presence, so we were the first Canadian engineering company of this company, but we were also the first in transportation. So we did get to bake the pie. We thought, oh wow, we're creating a healthy work environment. The company was going to be a good company, but we thought people would want to, be in a place that was 125, growing with 7,000 employees across the world. And they said, no, I really want to stay in a small company, but we'll wait and see kind of. And so it just never dawned on me, like here I am at 25 trying to convince them they want to, but I think they're aspiring to be in a corporate, but some of them weren't. Some of them want a small, well-defined, intimate, I know everybody, I feel part of the team kind of company versus, I want to be in a 20,000 company firm and be able to transfer to Asia when I'm 25 and then be a leader when I'm 27. Like everybody has different needs. And I think it's important to hear those needs and thoughts, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. And I think that, sort of the key thing about, why people leave, like you can't assume that somebody wants something unless
Yeah.
you talk to them,
Yeah.
and I think that sort of is the next thing is like, you have to be able to have open communication with your
Yeah.
teams, and just check in and see how everybody's doing and
And
don't
it is a
necessarily
conversation
know what
about
they're
getting
looking
to know
for.
each other for fit,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
sometimes it's scary because most people sometimes hire after just the one interview. So what did you spend? 45 minutes, maybe an hour, stretching it an hour and a half?
Yeah.
And some people will have 2 and 3 interviews and psychometric testing. Maybe that's a bit of overkill, but there's something happy in between. But really feel the person, and the person who's a candidate knows the company and the values of the company. I
Yeah.
want to talk a bit about candidates post-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, most people, I don't know, 75% of people worked full-time Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, if you're in a professional kind of place, and obviously longer hours to meet deadlines. But then COVID came, and then COVID was gone, and yet some people said, okay, back to work, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Sharing your experience, Sandra, what are the candidates today now looking for?
I think immediately after COVID, I would say most people were looking for complete work from home environments,
Right.
because they'd done it for a few years and everything worked, right? Like
Yep.
people were just as productive, if not more. And, so there was no reason to say no to that. As things shifted, I think now, more people are back in the office, at least 3 days, in some cases 4 or 5 days now. So I think that's changed a little bit. People have sort of come around and are more open to a hybrid work environment, but they still want that flexibility.
Yes.
So, whereas before you'd be like, okay, like I get it, I'm in the office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Now it's like, you know what? Like, why can't I work from home, 1 day a week? Or, like if you've got stuff happening, like, I don't know, like you've got a repair person coming to your house. It shouldn't be a big deal that you work from home on that day, like to accommodate that. Whereas before it would have been much more of a challenge. So I think people are looking for that flexibility, if not, a fully, I'm only in 3 days, but if I need to be, I'll be in the office as much as you want me to, but if I need to work from home, I want to be able to. So
I
that's
think there's a sense of logic. If you ask for something and it's reasonable, it should be granted, right?
Mhm.
Whereas if you say, no, everybody's supposed to be here 5 days a week because I want to see you guys. Well, that's
Yeah.
not logical, right? It's not productive. So when you feel a sense of control and you want things to happen your way, that's not a relationship. And that's
No,
not a relationship that encourages me to want to belong to this company. Like, my mentality is give them a reason to stay.
yeah.
So think
Yeah, no,
about that.
absolutely.
And
It's
if you're
like
doing stuff,
flexibility, trust, right? Like,
yeah,
and I get it. You're not going to do that with someone who, started yesterday, but
mhm,
you still sort of have to create an environment where you have an opportunity to build that trust. And once that trust is established, then yeah, you can be more flexible with work arrangements.
I remember pre-COVID, talking to people and they say, oh, they're working from home. I don't know if they're going to get the work done. What are they going to
Yeah,
do all
yeah,
day?
exactly.
And then 6 months later, the same person said, oh, they're working so hard. I'm so worried about them. I think, that's probably what you should have been thinking, rather than thinking everyone's just going to slack off at home and eat the popcorn and watch Netflix, and then put in 3 hours and say, oh, that was such a busy day.
Yeah, I find the opposite happened in a lot of cases because you
Exactly.
manage to fit the work in when you can, right? So you're
Yep.
still doing
Yep.
and you may be working later or earlier because you're not commuting, so there's all kinds of
Yeah.
things that
I
I
mean, that
positive.
flexibility really allows people to go in the morning, drop their kids off. Maybe they start, early to get a few hours in because they know for a couple of hours when the kids wake up, they've got to do the morning routine, and then to be able to go and pick them up for a half an hour and then resume work, because they're going to put those 8 hours in, but it doesn't necessarily have to be consecutive. And when you're happy and you know that you are allowed this flexibility, you're going to do a better job and be more productive and engaged. So
yeah, I think so too. And as long as you set the expectations that you're available for certain things, like, set meetings, whatever, then I think that works for everybody. And
when I was a new manager in my 30s, I thought, well, what kind of manager do I want to be? And I basically, when I met with all of my new staff, I would say, I have 3 things. I want to be fair. I will trust you. And I will assume a trusting relationship until you give me reason not to be. And when I say fair, I mean, if you do something, if you come to me with a request and somebody else comes to me with the same request, same scenario, not I want this weekend off. I want this weekend off because, my brother is getting married, versus I want this weekend off because, a new show's in town, right? Like, if you give me those 2 different scenarios, my answers may be different depending on whether I can accommodate it. Because I got somebody to fill it in or no, but I really believe this, so we'll work it out. We'll find somebody, right? So that's what I mean by fair. It doesn't mean that everybody that asks me something gets a yes. Everybody that asks me this scenario in this situation, I'm fair. I don't care if you're my best friend or perceived as my best friend or my worst enemy or the worst performer. It is the situation, right? So.
Yeah, no,
I like to always explain that to people, what fair is, because I think people's perception of what's fair is not always, it's in their eyes, right? And they don't understand the other things one considers to be fair. You've been recruiting for decades. I've been recruiting for decades. And things have changed. The way we used to hire people, 20 years ago, even pre-COVID, it's changed now. So I'm wondering if we can give our insiders tips on how to find staff in this post-pandemic era.
Well, I think for me, I mean, it's changed, but it hasn't changed that much. I mean, I post everything just because you never know who's going to see a job posting. I leverage my network and social. Well, I guess the change is you use social media.
Yeah.
And and LinkedIn is my best friend when it comes to, looking for people, because it makes it easier to do cold reach outs, like where you're looking for someone that may not be actively looking, but, has the right skills and is open to a conversation. So I think, I would say that's probably the biggest thing.
I think that is a big key. I have another colleague who does recruiting, and she said, Hilda, the people that respond to your ads are looking for jobs. When you go on LinkedIn and you're searching for the right fit, you go and you look at people who have jobs, who are good at the job and fit, and maybe they're not looking for a challenge, but when they hear about a challenge opportunity that comes along, they may decide to go for it, right? And so a lot of recruiters who are good will do that kind of search. Some recruiters just use their agencies and look up their database, but that's, when you talk about you post everywhere, where do you recommend people post nowadays?
The 2 places I post are LinkedIn and Indeed. I find Indeed has a wide reach depending on the level of the role. Like, I find the more junior roles I'd post on Indeed, the more senior roles I'd post on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure. Same here. Same here. And I think sometimes going to networking opportunities where those people will be, especially if you're working in an environment, you get out there and you go to those events that are networking, because sometimes you find somebody who is really good, and you might want to reach out to them later.
Yeah, and I will say that's probably the biggest change pre and post pandemic, right? Is pre-pandemic, everybody was at in-person networking events, right? So it was easy to meet people, and it just happened much more organically. Now, with a lot of events still being online, it does make that challenging, like the in-person events are fewer and far between. Not everybody's out there, like and I know myself, like my own activity levels have dropped on the in-person events, but so that's been a big change as well. So you are sort of more reliant on the online reach outs, I think.
I think in the last probably half year, that's evolving now.
Yeah.
And it's mixed. Like it hasn't, like everybody's come right back,
Yeah.
but people now are searching for opportunities and connecting. And when they get out there, they realized what a difference it makes from a virtual to a live event, because there's something about a live event that is not the same as virtual. I mean, you can see people smiling, you can see people frowning or laughing and giggling, but you can't feel that energy. Like, and then when I was thinking about that, I'm thinking, yeah, remember when we used to have executive meetings? There'd be 12 of us around the table. And instinctively, when somebody speaks, you just go and look in that direction. On a Zoom call, somebody's speaking, and I'm trying to see, okay, who's mouthing their lips? Because I can't tell, I can't feel it. But there's something about that physical energy when we're live together. You feel things, and you know what to. You can sense tension, you can sense, anxiety, positivism, or whatever. So there's something to be said.
The in-person too, there's a lot more random conversations that happen, because online it's more structured, right?
Yes,
it's like you speak, then you speak, then so I think there's a huge benefit to in-person events for sure.
Yeah. So it's happening with mixed results. Some people, when I talk to them, they'll say, "Oh God, I don't know why." They got it into a routine of, for example, after hours, I'm done. I can't do any more. Or I'm so used to putting my kids to bed now, and I can't say no, and they don't want me to say no. And so they get back into this kind of, no, I'm not going to go. But there are people who are going out, and now when they're going, they're saying, wow, that was worth it. So I think in 2025, people will start to get back into it. Obviously, the people that are social are out faster. I think during the month of November, I was probably out about 8 or 9 times.
Oh yeah,
I think that was a little too much. So, yeah, it is what it is. But when I was at these events, again, also those people that felt comfortable and I guess longing for the human touch of people were starting to get out. So I think, slowly people will start to.
Yeah, for sure. I think.
Focus on one more thing that I think will help HR professionals and business owners is, what can businesses do to attract the top talent? We've talked about why, good fit. We've talked about the fact that you want, what are candidates looking for nowadays? So I want to kind of gear the last part of our discussion to, what do business owners, HR professionals need to do to make an environment that will welcome people, that they'll want to stay?
Yeah, so I think there's the basics that we've talked about before, is having a compensation package that's at market. Like you want to make sure that you're paying people appropriately for the roles that they're doing, and to your point about benefits, that your benefit package is keeping up with what people actually want and are looking for, and the flexibility in those packages. The whole, work-life balance.
Yes, definitely.
Focus and creating that flexible or hybrid type work environment that suits most people and your business. Obviously, need to make sure your business still runs well, but what can you do to add flexibility there? And I think just, that whole positive environment where people feel valued, they're heard, if there's issues that come up, or opportunities to do something differently or better, that there's a way for them to speak up and be listened to, and and to create long-term opportunities for people. And, that's not always easy. As you said, like in a startup or a early stage company, you don't know yourself, right, what those opportunities are. But I think it's just being open and communicating well and so that people know that you're listening and you're trying, and I think that's really all people are looking for.
Those are so, it sums it up really nicely. And when people feel they're heard, they feel that there's a future, then they'll want to belong and they'll want to stay. If they're enjoying it and we are thinking about give them a reason to stay, they would stay. Right? Especially if it's a nice environment. If it's not, then they want to get out of there. And we already talked earlier about that. But yeah, it's so important to make people feel good. Because when people feel good, they feel the sense of belonging. And I think...
And they're going to work harder for you. Like if they feel like they're valued and you care.
Yeah, another interesting statistic was when people feel valued, when you give them a compliment and they feel that, their productivity increases 68% because they feel, wow, my boss noticed me and they tell me I did a great job, and then they want to work harder. I mean, you shouldn't do that. It sounds like a motivate, like, okay, I'm doing this because I want them to work harder, but that's a byproduct, and they feel happy doing it. So thank you for
back in the day when I first started work. Well, probably my first job outside of public accounting. And there'd be these, sort of achievement little awards that you'd get like for the month. And it's just a card. Like it was no big deal. It was just a little card that said, thank you, thank you for your efforts. But it made such a big difference, because you felt like people noticed the effort that you were putting in. Right. And I think that's what it is. It doesn't have to be thousands of dollars or anything.
No, it doesn't.
Just has to be some acknowledgement that people noticed, what you're doing.
When we first started out, we wanted everybody to feel equal, kind of. So if somebody stood out, we would then give them a bonus or something. Mm-hmm. And then we'd have to say, don't tell this to anybody. Yeah. And I remember going to a session saying, people want recognition. They want to know that you think something of them, and everybody, acknowledges them, and they feel even better than the small little quiet money that you gave them. Like nobody knows, right? So yeah, I got it. Thank you. One day, 30 seconds, I feel good. And then I took that advice and I thought, okay, we need to make them feel valued, make them be seen. And I came up with, so our company's name was called iTrans for transportation. And so my kids were young at the time, so I would see these little plastic cars in a glass case or a plastic case. Uh-huh. And I thought, okay, we're going to create an award. And we called it iCars. Okay. I play on the I word. We played on a lot of things for branding. And so I bought these at the Toys R Us. And then we got a label with their name, the date, and the project. And then at our staff meetings, we would award our staff for, 5 people worked on this project. Here's an iCar for this. And somebody did this. Here's an iCar for that. And United Way campaign. Here's the organizing committee. So one person got 2 iCars that day for different things. He phones his fiance up and he says, I got a car. Oh, what did you buy? No. I got a car. So what did you buy? And then he says, no, you don't understand. So he's explaining these little model cars. He says, you called me for that? And so he told me this story. Of course, it's funny. But then I realized he's recognized. It's so important that he has to phone his fiance. So I realized, yes, Hilda, you need to have external recognition. You need to make people really feel valued and other people notice that they're valued, right? So I thought, best $10 I ever spent.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So you come up with simple things. It doesn't cost a lot of money sometimes, but it can mean a lot to people. Mm-hmm. I know we could talk all day on this, but I think my goal was to bring you on and use our collective wisdom to help people kind of get some tips and strategies, the insider's perspective of helping find that right people and understand why they don't stay sometimes. And when you understand why they don't stay, you can make a difference to help them stay. So, Sandra, what's next for you?
Just continuing on with the recruiting. We're trying to really get out there more and do some in-person networking, as we talked about. And, hopefully 2025 will be a good year.
And when you say getting out there more, it's really to help people who are looking for recruiter who does above and beyond. Because there are certain times when you need a recruiter. And maybe you can share what kind of recruiting support you can give and what kinds of clients would really benefit from you doing a search for them.
I think for me, I prefer to work with clients that are very collaborative. I don't like when recruiting is treated as just as very transactional. Like, here's the job description, go find somebody, send me candidates, and that's it. I think there should be more of a conversation around it. And, we talk about fit, we talk about, all those things about why do people want to join you, what makes them stay, and who are you really looking for. And I think that in order to do that properly, you need to be able to have some conversations, and it can't be rushed.
That's so in keeping with you and the conversation that we had. And I wanted people to know that. So thank you for sharing that. How do people get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is my email. And it's S. D'Souza at ssgrp.ca. And my website is sandstonesolutionsgroup.com.
Well, thank you very much, Sandra, for joining me today and sharing your insiders and my insiders' views and tips on how to hire that top talent. So thanks again for coming on.
No, thank you, Hilda.
And for those who are listening and viewing, thank you for joining us today. I hope you got a lot of good tips from Sandra and me. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in learning more about different experts in different aspects of running a business, getting the right talent, then do subscribe to Rev Up Your Business. Have a great day. Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to Rev Up Your Business with Hilda Gann. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and Spotify to stay up to date with all of our latest episodes. For more HR tips, strategies, and to learn how you can create a people-centric workplace, visit our website at peoplebrightconsulting.com.